Anna Calvi, who is probably the only name I haven't torn apart today from the Open University, and they're going to tell us about the evaluation and reuse of open educational resources. And this is going to be a case study. And again, as we did earlier, we're going to take questions at the end of this talk, so then people can move around if they want to. Okay?
Thank you. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for coming to listen to this session. This afternoon, we're going to talk about the use and reuse of open educational resources for language teaching on a particular course, which is a French beginners course. Okay, and I'm Helene, and I'm lecturing French at the OU, and this is Anna, she's associate lecturer. We work together on the creation of the resources that we are going to show you this afternoon. Okay, so briefly, we're going to give you a little bit of background of who we are, what we're doing, assuming that we might not know much about the OU. We are going to tell you what it is that we were researching into this work. We will explain how we did it, what we found, and then recap at the end with what our main conclusions are. We are an institution of distance learning. We offer a variety of courses in 7 languages to thousands of students. The study materials are developed and created by a team of academics, and we deliver those courses through the associate lecturers all over the country who provide support to students in the regional centres. The support is in various forms, but essentially they offer tutorials. Now the tutorials are a mix of classroom tutorials and online tutorials. We have created some resources for the use of these online tutorials for our tutors. Traditionally, we haven't given teaching materials to our tutor when it was all face-to-face. But as we gradually moved to online tutoring, we have provided, as well as the study materials, we have provided teaching materials for our tutors. And this is what this is about. Okay, now, as I've explained, the tutors are all over the country, and we are teaching several languages, 7 levels. We used to have these materials in different course websites, and tutors could share. So about 3 years ago, we created our own institutional repository called Languages Open Resources Online, where all the resources are located for all levels, all tutors. LLAS contains our resources, but also contains resources from other practitioners in the language community. If you want, you can see that you can directly find the OU resources from the homepage, and this is what you would find if you click on Find the OU resources. Okay, so these resources located here are the ones that we have created for our tutors, but they are available for everybody. And we are going to concentrate today on the resources for the French beginners course. The reason why we've done this very small scale, very recent work is because we've just rewritten our French beginners course, and we've reconstructed the syllabus a little bit, so we have replaced the online resources. And what we wanted to do was to try to benefit from what we've done in the past 10 years, because we've done this for a while now, and we've looked at what Wiley and McGrill and other people have done in the field, and tried to put it all together to construct resources that would be usable by tutors. And to be usable, the resources have to be accessible, so they are because we put them on LLAS. They are designed to foster oral communication, interactivity, so they have visuals, movable objects, that kind of thing. Tutors can use as is or can adapt, change, replace, whatever they want. They are specifically related to the course, our French beginners course, and they offer they're activity-based, and they offer activities that go from, in a sequence, that go from control practice to more free, open-ended activities. They come with teaching guidelines, and they are copyright clear. Now, Anna is going to show you some examples of what we did.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to look at one resource that the tutors use after the students have studied the second unit, which is about expressing likes and dislikes, and on the theme of food. We start with an activation of vocabulary. As you can see from the first slide down there, the students move words to label vocabulary. On the right hand side they do the same thing, and as you can see it's all interactive. All those items can be moved by students. They label drinks and they add also grammar. Activation of vocabulary is also here, where the students are asked to move foods, names of foods, according to a number of categories, and also grammar. The tutor can extend it if they want to look in detail at the grammar, but this is an activity that takes only a few minutes, just to reactivate the vocabulary they should already know. After that, we move to more control practice. This is all part of the same resource, so you start from activation to control practice. So as you can see on the left-hand side, they first categorize the vocabulary about likes and dislikes, and then use that to talk about whether they like or not oysters. And on the right-hand side, they put the dialogue in the correct order, and then they use it to exchange opinions about the likes and dislikes. So this is very much control practice. Once you get to the end of the resource, you get to freer practice. Now the labels are removed, the prompts are removed, and the students are asked to freely discuss the likes and dislikes about food. Because they have had the preparation, they're usually able to pick quite a lot. So this last activity tends to last quite a lot, where the earlier ones are quick, they're just quick activation. We also included a number of classic communicative activities, such, for example, information gaps. Students look at 2 slides and carry out the information gap. And games, like this one, which is a snap activity. There are no cards, of course, but you move the boxes to reveal the words and then play the game. Okay, so having done all that, we thought, how will the student, the tutors use these activities? Will they use them? What proportion of these new resources will they use? And which criteria will they follow when they select a resource? And will they use them in the original form, or will they adapt them? And if they are adapted, how will they be adapted and why? So I'm now going to move on to a little bit of the theory that we have at the moment. There is not much about OERs. These resources I just shown you are called OERs, Open Educational Resources. They are available online, and anybody can retrieve them from internet or from repositories, just like Laura that Helene has shown us. But it's very difficult, although they are used. There is research that shows that these resources are used. There is very little that tells us how they are used. They are basically invisible, because what happens we can't see. So that's why we wanted to know more about it. But what does the previous research tell us? They tell us a lot about what happens when tutors use textbooks. That means paper resources, not online resources. So we have to start from that. The first step normally is material evaluation, and probably when tells us that tutors, teachers in general, tend to reflect on their teaching beliefs and theories about learning and teaching in order to develop criteria that then they use when they look at materials. And they try to find congruence between their teaching beliefs and the theories and the methodology, the context they're teaching, in order to, and their personality, in order to decide whether to do a number of possibilities. I mean, there are 4 selective processes. They may decide to select a resource, or they may decide to reject it. If they do select it, according to McGrath, they may add or change their resources. Reasons for this may vary. Usually for addition, teachers adapt, they can add explanations or exercises or further exploring materials. And if they change, it may be because the resource doesn't do what it's supposed to be doing very well, or not as efficiently as they wish. So Which techniques do they use? There is a large variety, and the literature gives us a long list that goes from personalizing to simplifying to deleting or reordering the activities. So we are now going to see what the, starting from what we knew about this, we're now going to look at what we found when we ran this investigation about the practices of our tutors. And then,
Okay, so very quickly, we sent a very brief questionnaire to the French beginners tutors. And when I say it's a very, very recent work, the course started in October, and we have sent the questionnaire in December 2012, because we wanted to capture what happened in the first couple of months in terms of reuse of resources. We wanted to see straight away how much use or not of these resources was happening. We had about a third of respondents, and we wanted to also investigate, as well as the usage, the reasons, the criteria that the tutors apply when they select their materials. And we wanted in the questionnaire to know whether they used as is or if they adapted, and the majority, of course, adapted. And we asked tutors to identify themselves in the questionnaire to say, we asked them, if you adapted your resources, would you like to give us an interview? And then they responded. So we interviewed 4 tutors, and in the interview, which we did online, using Elite, we asked tutors their general use of Loro and online resources, their teaching approach. We were very interested in knowing how they approach a tutorial online at French beginners, and we asked them to illustrate their approach through examples that they had used or adapted from our pool of resources. And this is what we found. Very similar findings to various OER projects that have been done recently. Roughly, well, the majority of our tutors used some of our resources, or all of them. It's in purple here, so it's a little quarter, just under a quarter, of tutors who do not use our resources at all. The reason they are giving is mainly because, and that's what shows here in orange, is that because they prefer to write their resources themselves from scratch. The general reasons, the main reasons for using our resources is that they trusted the source. They found, it's quite obvious here in orange, they strongly agree that the resources are accessible, which is obvious because it's all located in Loro. They're appropriate, it means that they fit the level, the group size, the timing of the tutorial, the learning objectives, etc. They're adaptable. That is a little bit unclear. Yeah? Some struggled to adapt. They fit the learner's needs, fine. In terms of pedagogy, not all agree that those resources fit their learning styles. Okay. If they have used the resources, they have adapted most of what they've used. So we are going to show you now examples of changes and adaptations that occurred in tutorials. This is what we gathered during the interviews.
Okay, first example, these teachers, there are 3 teachers, changed the materials in the sense they actually added the first page, which they used to personalize or run audio chats or even a first activity. They added something at the very beginning of the resource. Another example is for tutors who actually decided to you see on the left-hand side we have the original resource. On the right-hand side we see what the tutor did. And you see that they have added some prompts at the top. They didn't feel that the teacher, the tutor, the student had what was needed. And in particular, they wanted them to actually not only use the resource for activation of vocabulary, as suggested, but to use it as a beginning of a control practice. So they didn't go through the process as we had suggested. In the second example as well, there was an addition to help the students to actually discuss these items. And in this other example, we have, on the left-hand side, we have our proposal for a control practice activity. They had to put those conversations in order and then use the conversations as prompts, as examples, models, to do a freer practice on the next slide, where the prompts were not there anymore. What the tutor decided to do was to not do the right-hand side, so she skipped completely the freer practice and used the models as a basis for a freer practice activity. On this one, this tutor believed that students needed a lot of support, and he also believed that it was wrong for him to speak too much during the tutorials, wanted to cut it down to a minimum. So he added a lot of prompts there. Because you see, the left-hand side is our own material, on the right-hand side is the additions that this tutor made. And also in the second one, at the left-hand side is ours, on the right-hand side, he added full conversations so that the students could do the freer practice with the model just in front of them. So he didn't give the freer practice as we had suggested. On this one, this tutor is the same actually. He wanted to help again with more explanation. So he added person 1 and person 2 to indicate that that model had to be used in that particular way in both two students. Exactly the same he did below when he added example. You see the right-hand side, to help the student. This other student, this other tutor, decided to, well, her beliefs were that grammar and vocabulary are at the basis of teaching, and therefore she used our activity on the right-hand side, which was just meant to activate vocabulary about colors, but she added to it grammar on adjectives and extra pronunciation support. She also believed that it was right at this stage, even at the beginning stage, to get the students to practice writing Christmas letters and wish letters, and so she did that as well. So she added something extra because of her ideas. And finally, this activity, you can see on the left-hand side, there was a lot of activation of vocabulary on our part, and a suggestion to use that as basis of a control practice activity. On the right-hand side, though, the teacher decided, in fact, to not do the activity because she believed that vocabulary should not be given to the students. That should come from the student. That should come from the students themselves. So she provided an activity where the students just went off and did the activity without any support at all. So, so these are what we found, and Helene is now going to summarize these findings.
So what we found the reasons for adaptation to be matched the teacher's beliefs in terms of what should a good tutorial online for French beginners be. So the first tutor, every time we ask them, well, why have you moved that resource? Why have you moved that object? Why have you added this? Why have you... And throughout the interview, the response that we got was, because I wanted students to speak. And that slide that you provided here and then did not do that for me. Okay? So that was the answer of the first tutor, mainly. The second tutor wanted to provide students with a lot of support. He felt that the students should have all the prompts, all the structures in front of them in order to articulate autonomously the language. So these were the changes that that particular tutor made to achieve that. The third tutor was very strong on grammar, structures. She said in tutorials, students have got to learn and they have got to speak accurately, and for me it's grammar. So she has used some of the stuff that we've provided, but every time she used a particular resource, the angle or the reversioning, or whatever we want to call it, was to add grammar practice. The fourth tutor was probably the one who was closest to our approach generally. But all that she made, she used quite a lot of resources in her original form, but she changed the approach quite a lot because her belief was that students should come up with a vocabulary in class, and we should not leave the vocabulary clearly on the board for them to practice. So, for example, the slide that we showed earlier, one of our slides to practice nationality was to give a whole range of adjectives for students to remember those. But no, she didn't want to use that. She wanted to ask the show students a photo and elicit that kind of vocabulary from the students. Okay, so we found that the changes that tutor made to our resources reflected their beliefs in terms of teaching. What we found fascinating, and that's particularly tutor 2 and 4, was that during the interview, our approach was fun. Yes, it fits my teaching style, it fits the course, it's interactive, it's beautiful, all the criteria that we've explained at the beginning. They ticked all the boxes, and then they changed, right? So this is what we want to pursue. But before I do that, Anna is going to raise some recommendations.
Right, so what? If you would like to create resources and make them available to the world, or if you are an institution who's going to share their resources with the world, these are our recommendations based on our experience. Expect tutors to change and practitioners to change your resources because their ideas, beliefs may differ, or because they may have not seen what you actually were trying to promote. And so they would change. And so the attitude we encourage is to be open to all teaching styles and possibly even include them in any new resources that you create. But also, equally, it is very important to clearly explain the teaching suggestions. What we did, we have created a fiche pédagogique, a lesson plan, which explains exactly what to do. But that plan, how to use each lesson, each part of the resource needs to be clearly sequenced. Every single item should not appear as an individual item. There should be the approach clearly spelled out so that the tutor can see what it is meant to be doing. And to bring that at a forward level, having a discussion with the tutors, giving them a forum to discuss, would also help this understanding to develop. So, final words?
Okay. As I said, what we found was that generally our findings match what has been happening in the field of reuse of OERs for language teaching. Tita Bevan refers to the invisible reuse, and this is something that quite interests me, and this is why we studied what we've studied, to try to find what's happening to those resources. And we've, I hope, shown that even if the resources fit in and tick all the boxes, there are still some changes that are happening. And we have got, I think, a question to go further in this work, is trying to find out whether the changes are occurring because they did not, as Anna just explained, see the approach, or just didn't want to see it, or is it because they have a different understanding of what we mean by communicative approach? And we'd like to perhaps go back to those 4 tutors at the end of the course with a wider range of resources to see, to explore this difference. And we hope that maybe we can, I don't know, contribute to the field of materials adaptation, because as Anna said at the beginning, all we found is material adaptation of course books. And we haven't, please tell us if you know it exists, adaptation of online materials. And that concludes our work.
Thank you very much. I think we have time for a couple of questions.
we're happy to go back to resources if you want, or whatever.
So I've got something about Loro, because it's a while since I looked at Loro.
Yes.
And Inbox, perhaps, or Language Box. What are the similarities between those two systems?
We
So
are,
both
it's,
repository systems, aren't
yeah.
they?
it's the, do you want to,
No?
we,
And there's
same
something in
system,
there.
same system, we use the same structure,
technology,
yeah.
isn't it?
But we are a repository of languages resources for teachers.
But Language Box
And
is...
the Inbox is humanities, and it's also resources for students and for teachers. Whereas what we have put in Laurel are materials for teachers. And yeah,
I was just going to say, yes, the principle is mainly very similar, it's the same. You're right when you say the Humbox covers all the humanities.
Yes,
So
the
there are,
Language Box.
yes, Language Box I think is pretty much the same, it's very similar to that. Maybe one question that I generally tend to ask is about the comment box that you probably also have in Laura. If you use them in sort of building up the work that you do with these resources.
Yeah. No, we are not using this particular project did not look at this, because what we wanted to look at is how much they use, but we were not really it was not the purpose of this project to see how much uploading was happening and how much sharing was happening. This was not the purpose of this work. But Miliane, you wanted to
I have an
answer?
observation, because what struck me is, and I'm sure I'm not the first one to point this out, is what used to happen behind closed doors in face-to-face teaching
Yes.
context is now totally out in the open as well, because the resources are out there, and they are out there, and we expect these tutors to use them to also know a little bit better what's going on in our classroom, so that we can say we offer comparable experiences, learning experiences to our students. So we invite you, urge you strongly to use those materials that we designed to go with that course. The whole quality assurance discussion is also out in the open. And I think it would also be interesting to find out what your tutor's angle. I mean, I'm sure you have your personal opinions on this, but I think it would also be interesting to explore with your tutors what they think about this.
Yes. Now, I'm the person who's chairing that course, and I have written those resources, and we know the tutors on this course. And we had to make it really, really clear at the beginning that we were not doing this research to ask them to tell about the quality, right? We specifically said we're not asking you to evaluate the quality of these.
Yeah.
We just want to know if you, because you see the rapport.
Yeah, but it is a misunderstanding. I'm talking about quality assurance in teaching offered. You know, we as an institution.
Yeah, okay.
I'm not talking you and the quality of your resources. It opens up this whole debate.
Yes.
All of a sudden it's out in the open. How can we make a justified claim that we are offering comparable teaching experiences to our learners if we see what our tutors then do with the materials when they use them in situ in the online classroom?
Yes.
It's all out in the open now. It used to happen behind closed doors, and we wouldn't even think of having this debate.
Yes.
But now we cannot not have this discussion, I find.
Yes. True.
Yeah?
Yes.
Yeah?
Although probably the resources which are out there are very sort of, they aren't like entire courses yet. So it's, I don't know, they're more discrete in a way. So you have just one resource that can be used in different situations.
Yeah, of course, but I mean, in an institution like the Open University, I'm part of this, claims that you get comparable learning experiences.
Yes, no, that's right.
No matter what your tutor group is, no matter what your...
I think we've shown that
Exactly.
But are you not worried about the outcomes? I mean, the outcomes are similar, that you don't need to worry about how you get there anyway.
Yeah,
Right.
of course you have to
Yes.
follow that through.
This is what-
You are very
yes.
right. You have to follow the whole student learning experience
Yes.
through from A to Z to see whether it's
This
really
is-
an issue or maybe not. After all, I
Yeah.
agree.
Mm.
Yeah.
And this is one difference which exists between LoRo and language box, because LoRo is institutional, isn't it? Sort of, it is affiliated with the Open University, whereas language box is just open. It
But
doesn't-
Laura is open to
Laura is
everybody.
open
so-
to-
Yes, but it's not. It doesn't represent an institution. So
Yeah.
language box basically doesn't represent the University of Southampton because
Yeah.
we've got like
Yes.
people.
Yeah, yeah,
going
it's
and
true.
from different- So
True.
it's a different, slightly different thing, I suppose. So on that note, I think we should thank you.